I'm a member, long-time listener going back to Majority Report and Break Room Live, faithful watcher of that show.
Hold on for one second.
I'm a retired... Thank you. Always wanted one of those. Anyway, this is the first time I've ever called in. But anyway, I'm a retired physician. I listen to the show on podcast, and I just got done listening to Ian Millheiser about the Supreme Court and the Halbig case. And I just had one comment I wanted to make. One way we should be framing this, okay? People will die. How many people will die? Well, earlier this year in New England Journal of Medicine, they published a study done of Massachusetts before and after Obamacare to see if it had an effect on various things. And one of the things they found was that it saved lives.
Right.
In fact, for every 800 people who were enrolled by Obamacare, they saved one life over 1 year. So 5 million people, if the Supreme Court strikes down Obamacare and 5 million people don't have health care, you could do the math. It's going to work out to 6,000 people are going to die next year because of the Supreme Court. Now, I don't think that's going to change the Supreme Court's mind about what they're going to decide.
I agree with
but it may change the mind of governors out there, because there's a very simple fix the states could do, by defining their exchange as the federal exchange, and then the IRS can say, oh, that's good, so we'll continue to give the subsidies. So we got to start framing it now that, 5,000 to 6,000 people will die. And this doesn't include the people who aren't getting medicated because the red state governors are refusing it. That's an additional several thousand people. And the politicians can't frame it this way, but this is the way I would frame it. If they rule against it, this Supreme Court has just sentenced to death more people than were killed by Al-Qaeda on 9/11.
That's a great point. That's Dahlia Lithwick has a piece out about how just sort of sequestered the Supreme Court is in terms of their understanding the real world implications of something like this. But you're absolutely right. There's actually been a couple of pieces written about that in the past. We've talked about that mortality study coming out of Massachusetts. I think there was a guy who wrote that very thing in the Washington Post a couple of days ago in response to the King versus Burwell case making it to the Supreme Court. He had, I believe it was a cirrhosis of the liver, not a function of drinking, but I'm not exactly sure what it was. But
maybe
he said
fatty liver, I think.
Yep, and yes, I think you're absolutely right, and it's a point well taken. I appreciate the phone call.
Wait.